Hi everyone. Over the next few weeks, maybe even months, I want to share with you a burden that's been on my heart on the issue of domestic abuse. Now, one of the consequences of the coronavirus lockdown has seen an almost 50% increase in the number of calls being received by domestic abuse hotlines. But historically, domestic abuse has been cited as the most universal and unpunished crime of all. Now, domestic abuse means different things to different people, but abuse takes place in a relationship where you have one person with a position of power who uses that power in order to harm another individual or individuals. The legal definition over the years has broadened and evolved to embrace the concept of coercive control, which is a pattern of behavior that's designed to take away another person's freedom or liberty, to strip away their sense of self, to violate their human rights. So abuse is a lot more than physical or sexual violence. It includes psychological abuse, emotional abuse, destruction of property, economic abuse, financial abuse, stalking, a myriad of ways that people use in order to exert power and control over another. Domestic abuse essentially is terrorism. And I don't use that term lightly or for effect. It is terrorism, pure and simple. Webster's dictionary defines terrorism as the calculated use of violence or the threat of violence in order to attain goals through intimidation, coercion, or the instilling of fear. And that's essentially what domestic abuse is. In her book, Trauma and Recovery, Dr. Judith Herman noticed the commonalities between the experiences of prisoners of war and the experiences of victims of domestic violence. She compares, and I quote, the survivors of vast concentration camps created by tyrants who rule nations and the survivors of small, hidden concentration camps created by tyrants who rule their homes. Now, I wish I could say that this wasn't a problem that afflicted the church, but that would be so far from the truth, because those in faith communities are just as likely to experience domestic abuse as those in the general population. We have terrorists in our churches, and that lays a great responsibility on our shoulders, because once we become aware of a problem, if we don't do everything within our power to actively root out the terrorists among us, we become complicit in their crimes. Because when it comes to domestic abuse, there is no sitting on the fence, there is no middle ground. Everybody has a responsibility to deal with domestic abuse. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, educate ourselves. Familiarize ourselves with the policies and procedures that the church has in place so that we know how to react when situations arise. We can provide practical resources to educate people about domestic abuse. We can use the platforms and the forums that we have in order to generate conversations about abuse. We can make sure that we hold perpetrators accountable for their crimes, to make the church a safe environment so that those who are surviving abuse can feel confident that if they come, if they disclose, if they choose to share, then they're going to find a listening ear and the support that they need. Now, if that person is you, if you are surviving abuse, pluck up every ounce of courage that you can find to talk to somebody. Share it with somebody. Don't suffer this by yourself. Check out those organizations that are in place to help those who are going through abuse. Refuge, Women's Aid, the National Domestic Abuse Helpline. Do whatever you need to do, but don't suffer it alone. Don't suffer in silence, because abuse is not God's will for your life. It is not. For the rest of us, let's embrace the mission of Jesus. Jesus came to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim deliverance to the captive, to set at liberty those who are bruised, to comfort those that mourn. And let us take that on board, because when Jesus left this planet, he passed on that responsibility to his church. So let's work together to make our homes, to make our churches, to make our communities hostile environments for the existence of abuse in all its various forms. And let's heed the counsel that we get in Proverbs 31 verse 8 and 9, which urges us to speak for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of those who are in need. Let's work together to make this happen. God bless you.